I'm just coming in with a quick live stream. I just want to say what's up to anyone out there. Um, this one, I'm just gonna take a minute to let the room fill out. But I had a lot that I want to come with and say that I have to a value that I think is a value that I like to offer today. And I want to say that I commit this in the name of truth. And I just want to say thanks to anyone for rocking with me or this channel in the least way. To click on a video or to subscribe, it really means a lot. Um, and I want to say this I want to take with this video right here. I want to give a salute. And solidarity means like brotherhood. I want to say salute and solidarity with every single freedom fighter out there. And I just want to say that sometimes freedom doesn't look like freedom, and fighting doesn't look like fighting. But I think that every single person, man, woman, child, and other, has it in them and is in different ways now being and had been and will always be a freedom fighter. It's not about black or white. It's not even about having or having not. It's just about choosing in a given moment, because we're all given power in this life. We're really creators, par excellence, human beings. And all the things that we say, do, and think are creative on a lot of levels for us and for others. And I think that for lack of a better word, righteousness, it doesn't look like what it doesn't always look incredible, and it may be the very the where mercy would come from. It wouldn't seem like that. Um, right now, just to preface this video, I'm making this video from what I'm going to say in country in the United States. And I watched a video about a couple weeks back, and this man was saying that whatever you do in life, like whatever you flirt with, at a certain point, it's going to become real, and it's going to be so real that you can't walk it down. Like an example of that is like say you were to get like a tattoo, right? You get a tattoo of something, and it's like that tattoo, it may or may not mean something. Like say you got a tattoo of like a warrior, right? Like a something to do about a warrior. I'm not saying that it would be affiliated with other with like a with a I'm not saying that it has to be affiliated with something or not, but or symbolic of something or not, but that you would take the step to put a tattoo on your body. You might get a tattoo. At first, it looks cool. It it like one of the things, so a tattoo might look cool, but at first it's still this cool thing, right? This tattoo is a cool thing, but it hasn't yet changed your life. It hasn't flipped your life upside down, reverse, inside out, and so much that you can't get away from it. But if you keep rocking that tattoo long enough, you might say you rock that tattoo and you got a partner in your life, you got a friend in your life. I think that friends impact your life here and hereafter, because a friend can protect you in this world. A friend can get you sent on off this world, and a friend can bring you your future self, like say your family for you. A friend can bring that into this world. So say you just got a tattoo and it attracted a friend into your life. That's a real friendship now, and that friendship comes with the ability to gain and lose and feel joy and feel pain. And so it just got real like that. So anything that we flirt with long enough, it'll get real enough. So I've been flirting with like this channel and like trying to make content that is challenging to make, and it challenges the status quo. You could say that my understanding of good and bad, right and wrong, is just status quo and like popularity, and I think that it doesn't break down neatly, because everybody is a little bit status quo, everybody is a little bit anti-establishment, and everybody has different opportunities to 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 help other people. But so I'm just saying that for me, this thing got real about life. It got real recently, and so now I'm traveling. But one of the main things I wanted to uh, uh, so someone said so I'm just keep rolling with this. But so I'll riff on that. So someone said, "Where are you?" So I'm making this from the Sunshine State, and traveling here, I wanted to point out some things that I noticed. When I was traveling, I went through Chicago, and I'm from the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and probably a lot of the people I've been knowing my whole life would have been from Chicago, Midwest, Gary, Milwaukee, stuff like that. But anybody in America, you know, to step light around Chicago, because Chicago is very formidable. I met when I was in high school. I met a person from the next school over. He was a way upperclassman when I was young, and he was telling me some real baseball, because like where I went to school at St. Paul Central, and like I would be involved in like the audio recording and stuff like that. And you had like some real talent at that school, St. Paul Central. I'm referring to groups like Verbal Tactics. We're at St. Paul Central, but there was something that happened in one of those audio rooms that was heinous about like there was a girl that she was having like relations with someone, but she got her feelings hurt doing that, and and so it was like this big thing. I was barely a freshman, but it was like this big thing that I think it may have it ruined. I had a friend playing basketball, and him and his older brother were like real smooth, like Casanovas, real life Casanovas, and I think that scenario, it got that guy in a lot of trouble, the older brother. But then like later that year, I was at a library playing basketball with someone from Chicago, and he was from the next school over, but he was like tapped in, and so he told me what happened with that thing, that famous thing. I'm referring to St. Paul Central, like year of 2000, so like fall of 2000, going into school year 2000 2001. There was some kind of debacle like that happened at that school, and the next person from the next school over, he was from Chicago, but he was like just visiting, like he was a upperclassman, but he was saying that particular that guy was a Casanova, and he wasn't offending that girl, but it was it got ratchet because of some of the other people that were in there. But all I'm saying is that he was just this really connected person, and wherever you get the truth of something from the streets, a lot of times, like the real story, the real justice, it comes from the streets a lot of times. But this guy from the streets, from Chicago, he said, if you can do something in Chicago, you can do it anywhere. And I think that's very true, because like if you look at Michael Jordan, I read a book by the man who trained Michael Jordan one-on-one during the glory years of the Bulls, and he was saying that it's a book called Winning. I think it's called On Winning or Winning, and he was saying that at that year when Michael Jordan got drafted, he was like one of the top picks, but Portland had the pick before Chicago did, and Jordan had already been playing with like Bob Knight, like with the dream with the I think he was already on the Olympic team before he ever made it to the NBA, and like Bob Knight was talking to the cadre from Portland, and they're like, who should we pick? And he's like, Bob Knight's like, you need to pick Michael Jordan, and they're like, yeah, I know he's great, but we need a center. And he's like, so play him at center, and this guy but all I meant to say is Jordan could have went to Portland, and like a lot of our childhood, our life would have been different if Jordan would have went to Portland. That would have been entirely different calculus. Like a lot of times people say like algorithm and stuff like that. I think algorithms, if I'm not mistaken, are part of trigonometry, and the most sublime or sophisticated part of trigonometry is calculus, but all of life is calculus. So the calculus of Jordan going to Portland, and then a lot of us as fans, we would have been rocking Portland gear. We would have maybe been taking trips to Portland to see the Bulls, to see Jordan play. So life would have been way different if Jordan would have went to Portland, but he went to Chicago, no less. And I would be one to wager. I would be one to really wager that maybe some of the greatness that is Jordan, because if you look at Jordan, like some people would say so you have like 1-footed dunkers, 2-footed dunkers, you have 3-point artists, you have slam dunk artists, you have slashers, you have big men, you have ball handlers, you have there's so many different facets of basketball, like where someone could really excel. And that's because the real basketball, it's about selling the game. So you can't say that just because someone got more championship, like real basketball purists, for lack of a better word, would probably break it down to championships, because that's where the buck stops, that's where the debate stops. But in terms of making money because it's about making money and stuff like that, the one way of playing basketball isn't better than the other, and they all bring in revenue. Because like a lot of people, they always give Larry Bird a hard time, like he wasn't as athletic or something, but he was a 3-point artist, and also he was a little bit of a showman and like a trash talker. So and then also if you appreciate Larry Bird playing in Boston, he had the perfect personality for that Boston crowd to really ramp up ticket sales. So Larry Bird was like his own thing. Magic Johnson was his own thing. But then so too Michael Jordan was kind of like his own thing. And I don't think probably even Jordan himself, like a lot of people have put it to Jordan like what this GOAT talk, GOAT, so this and that. What do you got to say about that? And Jordan's like, man, I ain't got to say nothing to say about that, man, because you're never gonna say who's the GOAT. It's relative to who's asking that, who's talking about it. But I think a deeper thing is that Jordan was one of the most versatile. I would say, I think that Jordan was the most versatile player because if you look at like all the demographics of what a what a player can be, and then also like he had that it factor, which you can't take that away from it. He had his look, which you can't take that away from it. You had his some of his shortcomings because like sometimes imagine like you had the most handsome person in the world. If someone was the most handsome person in the world, imagine somebody would go and break their nose like that, heaven forbid. That might make them more handsome because a lot of things are not actually perfect without a blemish. That's a deeper thing. Like, and I want to talk about that a little bit today. Is like imagine like they call it a beauty mark, right? Like what is this? Like a lot of people may not appreciate this. I have an actual dot right here. I don't know if you can see that. I have a birth, not a birth, what's called a beauty mark right there in the center of my forehead like that. That'd be called a bindi. In India, that's called a bindi. And bindi is a feminine form. That's what a woman would have. And then but then that bindi is part of bindu. And this whole universe is actually bindu. It's like a point without, it's actually a pure point. It contains all points within it. It contains all things to exist and not exist, and that could potentially exist and will positively exist and positively be deleted. And anything that you can think of, dream, be, experience, plan, all of that is contained within Bindu. But then the Bindu, I think the representative of that would be like the male semen, like the white. So the Bindu is white, I think, Bindu. But then the feminine bindi is that dot and it's red, and I think that's reminiscent of the menses. But I could stand to be corrected if anyone's from India. But I have an actual dot right there that occurs on my forehead. But some people might not appreciate what is it about a birthmark. Why would something be called a birthmark? And a beauty mark, but actually a blemish is actually what makes something perfect. Because imagine you had like this like a perfect snowman or something like that. Like somebody would just have to kick it, right? If something was just like too perfect, somebody would have to alter something that's too perfect. So if something's already been altered first, then it's nearly immaculate. And I think that actually some of Jordan's sticking points, like his meanness, his kind of harshness on the other players, his self-criticism, his competitiveness, almost to like, you could say that was a shortcoming of Jordan's, because if somebody were really savvy, like back in the day, somebody could have really potentially handed Jordan an embarrassment if they really were composed enough to work his anger, things like that. Because but all people have it's like, I think this life has a failsafe, and all things are balanced and tempered. So there is no perfect anything, no perfect person. So actually Jordan himself, he could not be any more of Jordan than he was. But I'm saying that all those things work for him, his versatility, but even his shortcomings too, and his very blemish of some of his anger and his competitive drive. But that also is an aesthetic in itself, but it's a shortcoming of it. It can be a shortcoming. So I'm just saying that Jordan was very versatile. He was all around on a lot of things. But with that, I think he had to really work for that. He had to. So what I'm saying is that Jordan was talent. Jordan was raw talent. You can't be more talented than Jordan. You can be talented differently. You can be as talented, but you can't be more talented than Jordan, I don't think. But then on top of that, he had the work ethic, the drive to go with that. Then also he had a very savvy person from India that was helping him, a man who descended from India, and he wrote that book On Winning, and so I think that at least that trifecta of blessings that Jordan had, because sometimes it takes a combination for things to be real. You had his talent, his work ethic, and then some of his ability to who had been in his corner, so his influences that had been putting him on game. But also this man in the book On Winning, and I think he had another book called Unstoppable, said that Jordan would hold everyone to account. So he'd hold himself to account, he'd hold people in his life to account, and then he'd also raise the bar and live up to that bar. So I'm saying that I think Chicago itself has a lot to do with the man Jordan. But then just the rigors of Chicago, the dynamics of that city, it can make a rose grow out of concrete. But so I was saying is that anyone from America, but especially the Midwest, knows that Chicago is nothing about like to play with, about joking around. But it was my I haven't been to Chicago a lot. I've been through it, but I was recently going through, and I was thinking that, say you go through Chicago, and you go through like you're just driving through, right, and you see like you see the infrastructure, like some of it's not dilapidated, but it's not like it's not like where I'm from, the Twin Cities has some of the strongest infrastructure because they have something called the Metropolitan Council, and they're like a satellite of the city. I think they draw their subsidies like somewhat from the state, and then somewhat they're kind of like reminiscent of like the good old boys, the wise guys of the old. And I was saying in this channel that the Twin Cities has a history of like a good old boys club, and it would actually be a from some of the histories of gangsterism in America itself, the aesthetic of gangsterism itself. A lot of that has to do with Chicago itself. And then the Twin Cities is an actual, in fact, sister city of Chicago. Is recognized as that. I think, so it would be a logical place then and now to still wait till the heat would die down. And I've met people at some of these bases. These people were Teamsters, because I would be working as a bus driver. That the union for CDLs is Teamsters. So these actual Teamsters, or people working around Teamster work, would tell, they're old enough to remember, they tell me that old baseball about the Twin Cities, St. Paul, Minneapolis, and how it was connected to, and as part of Chicago, and the activities of gangsterism, and like speakeasies and bootlegging and stuff like that. And so there's like these famous caves called Wabasha Caves in St. Paul, which would have been there was a lot. They say they're haunted because there are a lot of assassinations of gangsters there. And also there's a gangster. So if you go by the Wabasha Caves now to this day, there'll be gangster cars parked out there because it's a tourist location, and they play into that. But then these people from Minneapolis that were telling me that, these Teamsters from Minneapolis recently in the last 5 years or so, they're telling me that same history is not the same in Minneapolis because the politics break down differently, and they were just too money grubbing in Minneapolis back in the day, so they wouldn't let some of the same stuff fly as far as money laundering and stuff like that. And I would imagine that the Kennedy family, the famous Kennedy family, would have had something to do in and around and near Chicago, if not also Minneapolis and St. Paul. Whether that's known or not, I'm just extrapolating because I know that they made their fortune a lot around bootlegging, the Kennedy family, and I know Chicago has a broad history of bootlegging that amounts to fast money, money off the books and stuff like that, in the entire aesthetic of gangsterism, and in the country over. And we're still actually deep. I think some of these trends, some things really traumatize the human experience and don't leave the human experience. I think that World War II, World War One, and World War II traumatized humanity, and we're still reenacting that trauma to the present day. In what we do for military adventurism, games and stuff like that, we're actually really reenacting and reliving the trauma of World War II, and also some of and replicating some of the lucrativeness of that, actually mobilizing, as some people would say, for lack of a better word, as euphemism, full mobilization that World War II meant. And I think that never stopped in terms of a status of living and lifestyles that forced and mandated us to become where you didn't have women staying at home anymore. So I think that World War II forced us to be more of a co-ed society, because once that machine ratcheted up the production scale of that, and then I think that machine just never stopped after World War II. And then they say that, I was recently listening to someone that said that I saw there's this picture, I couldn't help but cut it out like maybe 10, 20, 15 years ago. It was a picture of World War II in Eisenhower. And Eisenhower was walking past these men. And I've said that when men go to war like that, they're no longer men. They're not, there's a soldier, there's a man, and then there's someone who's actually been to war, and it's different than that. Kind of similar would be like, a lot of times I say you had to live rough, like I'm living rough right now. You become something different when you're living rough. But also war is like that, the most extreme of that. So it's something different like that. But you still have your soul. You're not less of human, but you're a different form of a human, having been to that kind of horror and terror and suffering and striving like that. But they took a picture of these men behind like near the front, in front of Eisenhower. And if you see the respect that these men have for Eisenhower, it's like it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. Like a lot of times, like you would say that like an officer or something like that might seem pretentious, or like, not pretentious, but like entitled. But if you see Eisenhower in front of these men, you really see greatness. You see the full spectrum of greatness. You see the greatness of what a soldier is and what a man is, but then also of what a leader is. That combination there, that's a very famous picture. Someone might know that picture I'm talking about. But then I listened to someone recently and they said that Eisenhower is responsible for winning World War II. I'm not enough of a historian buff, but I know that you had like some of the salient generals would have been like Patton and Eisenhower. But I think that Patton, if you read some of the works of Patton, he was a lot. He had like a penchant on his shoulder, and he came from a long family line of cadre and military cadre, and Patton is almost reminiscent of Moby Dick. I bumped into a person at I would go to like this Perkins in the Twin Cities a lot during the last few months before I started getting on hard times. And I would always stage there because I'd go to the gym before the gym would barely open, and I'd get exactly grits, a little bowl of grits, coffee, and like peanut butter and jelly, and that would have me just right for the for working out, because the grits is like, it's kind of like it got your carbohydrates, just a little bit of protein has the peanut butter has the protein, and then the sugar has like just a little bit to keep you awake like that, and then the coffee, it'll stay if you're a habitual coffee drinker, I think that coffee can be good for you. I bumped into this man on the outskirts of the Twin Cities like a couple summers ago, and there's this picture on the wall of this body that was in such beautiful immaculate form, a male body, that I didn't want to keep looking at it, but I could not look at it, how beautiful of a form that was. But it was actually an older man like that, and he was right there. That was his actual pizza shop, and he was on the wall there. If you ever meet a bodybuilder, bodybuilders are some of the most incredible people, because they usually have hacks of doing things, and I've met at least 2 incredible bodybuilders. But that bodybuilder said that coffee can be good for you, black coffee. But I'll go to this place in the morning, and this really cool guy would work there, and he would be like, yeah, man, I gotta be nice to that lady over there, man. I think she's actually homeless, man. She's just trying to get in from the cold. But I was actually on my way. I was actually being homeless at that time too. But I didn't look it the same way, because I would be using like mama's car when I was there. But then he was like, hey man, hey, what's up? Because I'll go there the way off hours of the night. He's like, you grits again, right? Okay, I got you. And then after he would hook it up, he would say it loud, like he knew what grits were. Like, grits again, right? Okay, I got you. And then he's like, hey, but what are grits? But I think grits are like cornmeal or like gruel. But grits are a thing that's like, it's very like cultural, because like in the South, like a lot of times, like African American people in the South, going back, we didn't have the best cuts of meat. Like if you didn't have like the grocery stores and fast food right now, you'd be excited by the different cuts. Like, oh, we got legs today. Oh, we got a shoulder today. That would be like the big thing to look forward to. Like if you don't know where your next meal is coming from, Dad might have to shoot some squirrels or not. But tonight we're getting like ham hocks, or we're getting like a shoulder, or we're getting like a thigh or something like that. That would be a big deal. But so traditionally in American society, African American people, American Africans, majority people, we've had the least desirable cuts of different things, notwithstanding our contributions systematically by and large. I think the numbers would flesh that out. So we had to make subsistence on a lot of less of the finest of food. Like an example of that is, if you look at there's this brilliant YouTuber named Hannibal for King, and he does these beautiful body weight exercises. But he was saying there that he eats a lot of junk food. Like he would work out a lot of several times in a day, but he would eat junk food. But your body will use food differently depending on how much you're exercising. So if you're being sedentary and you eat junk food, that's not the same thing as working out several times a day and then eating junk food. So what could exactly be like the same, like different animals have different diets. Like I listened to the King Noble, and he said that what one animal would eat would kill another person. So if somebody has a diet largely of junk food and stuff like that, that could kill another person, but their body may actually learn to use that food well, as strange as it would seem. So someone could be doing better with junk food than you may be doing with a regular food, if you don't have the same consistency, or you have different rigors and strengths in your body versus your staple food. But so American African, so grits is synonymous with southern living and some of the southern comforts, but also deprivations. So when you say grits, a lot of people would appreciate that as being like American African, a majora. But it's just because we would that's some of the most basic of subsistence that we can eat, that we would be allotted, but that also we can be strong with. So I would do stuff like that. But that guy that I met at at that restaurant, he was captivated by the book Moby Dick, because Moby Dick is about this whaler, this Captain Ahab, I think, and he has like a vendetta against this white whale, and he's out to prove a penchant, but he's willing to sell he's willing to get to sell to use his men for like the ends. It's a book about, do the ends justify the means, I think, according to this guy. And I think that Patton was like similar like that, where Patton was about, he was about honor, he was about duty, he was about family line, but I think he would approach war fighting differently than Eisenhower. And so I was speaking to someone firsthand, and they said that Eisenhower was really responsible for winning World War II. But I think but then also Eisenhower warned of the military industrial complex. I think he warned of that in the 50s. But I think that's actually that because like I think like the Nobel Peace Prize, that was also the Nobel Peace Prize is after this scientist named Nobel, and he's responsible for the type of whatever, it's like the sophisticated form of whatever allows weapons to be automatic weapons. That form of gunpowder, that innovation of gunpowder was from this man named Noble. So I think so a lot of that man Noble has so much blood on his hands, because all this fighting going back probably now currently, and then going back for the technology that is built off of the existence of automatic weapons, and then going way back to the automatic weapons when they first became really viable. This man Noble has that much blood on his hands for that innovation in automatic gunpowder, automatic firepower gunpowder. And so the Nobel Peace Prize is named after him, because he had that on his conscience. And so he tried to steer that or use his greatness to inspire peace. But I think that Eisenhower might be similar, where I would imagine Eisenhower might be responsible for some of the protocol and the implications and the war gearing of World War II and the mass mobilization. But then also he warned about the military industrial complex, but he may have been warning it because he made it, I think. But that war gear readiness, production, mass production like that, it never stopped. So I think we never got out of that gear. Then some of the trappings that came with that, the lifestyles, the suburban lifestyles, the cars and stuff like that, it just never stopped to the present day, such that it demanded two income households. Because I think back in the day, households would have been more viable with one income, because life isn't as expensive as we make it to be with inflation and consumerism and stuff like that. So you could say that a lot of us then also being co-ed society, co-ed workplaces, co-ed schools and stuff like that, going back not very far back, that wasn't common. Like my mom went to an all-girls school. She didn't experience dating until she got to college. But then according to my mom, full disclosure, she went kind of hog wild when she got to college. But that might be more of a normal human thing, where you would go all the way through your full development without being co-ed. Because if you think about your experience in school, I don't mean to be a jackass saying this, but a lot of the opposite gender was a lot of a distraction when you were in school. Like I know for me, girls were a huge distraction when I was in school, huge distraction. And I would imagine it may not have impacted my development for the best, because I had been worried about parties, I was worried about dating, I was worried about wanting to be active and stuff like that way before my time, just as a normal kid in the public schools. But that might be a function of the co-ed society and World War II like that. But I'm not saying that's good or bad, but I'm just connecting dots. But I would imagine that the Kennedy family, they would have had to do about Chicago, because they were infamous and renowned and prolific bootleggers. And a lot of that bootlegging culture, that gangsterism, was around the Midwest and Chicago and in the Twin Cities. But when you go through Chicago, I just wanted to say that some of these things that we have traumatized us, and they're still largely with us. So like gangsterism is still largely with us, and some of the mass production of World War II is still with us. But I want to say that if you look at gangsterism, like some of the areas that have like prolific activity of gangsterism. One of the main ones going way back and currently would be Chicago, and then another one would be California. And if you think about Chicago and California, they're they have some of the most, they can be some of the most racist places. Like I remember when I was going through Chicago recently, like within the last week or two, I remember twice on the same bus, right? Someone said, someone was talking about like, yeah, because it doesn't smell right in here because you got all these black people together. That was a black person that said that. They said, because they were saying like they were saying, they actually said a racist comment, but a lot of people wouldn't register that as racist because it had been a black person to say that. But what I'm saying is that racism is straight up racism no matter who says it. If a black person says something racist, that's straight up racist. If anybody else says anything racist towards their own group or another group, that's straight up racist. And so I think that in these areas that have been straight up racist, I don't think very many people would argue me that Chicago has been very racist. I think Chicago is famous for like redlining, where in this neighborhood they're very culturally and economically cloistered, isolated communities within communities in Chicago. But what that amounts to is racism and segregation, strong segregation. But the people are connected, and human beings are one and deal with one another. So I think that if you have a racist area, an area with a history of being a lot of racism, all the people there are affected by it, and likely all of them are culprits in it if they don't know better and they haven't learned better and become better. So a racist area is just a racist area, and that will be endemic to that area. So I think that some of the gangsterism in Chicago like that, it has to do with the economics going back, and then also it has to do with segregation and racism. And so if you think, and then like another one would be like, and I think that economics, money is actually racism. Money is segregation, because what are we doing with money? With money, we're trying, because like I think that like if you're in California, right? California is a beautiful place. It has light and dark, but it can be very mean. California can be very mean. Like I got out here last summer, and I was about to be on hard times. All I needed to do was tap in with my aunt for like a day, because I had my own bike. I had my own way to make money. I just needed to simply touch down for a day, and when I got here. But when I got here, my family, my mom had been in communication with my aunt, and my aunt said, "Oh hell no, he'll have nothing to do about here. Hell no, will I have anything to do with him?" And I had been calling her the dream aunt my whole life, because I thought she did cool things to me when I was young. I thought that she was this cool person, but later I found out that she had tapped on this channel of mine, and I said one thing that rubbed her the wrong way, and she didn't want to support me. But I found that out later. But a deeper thing that I found out is that the actual culture of California is a very non-accommodating culture. Like if you say you go to like a public place, like say a mall, or like a bus, like a major bus depot, right? There'll just be no bathrooms there anywhere, right? You go to you have to pay to play in California. You cannot be anywhere, anyhow, do anything, anyhow, without paying to do so. And it's expensive on top of that. For example, I took a bus today, right? So the train, the trolley is $250 to take the trolley. That goes one way. In the Twin Cities, the buses and the trains are connected. You pay for one fare, you pay one fare, that will give you a transfer. You can take as many rides as you want on a train or on a bus, or in between them as many times for 2.5 hours. In California, you take a trolley ticket, is 2.5 hours. Then if you get on a bus, that trolley ticket means nothing on the bus. The bus takes $1.50, but that's only one way. Just $1.50 to go somewhere. You don't get to ride again, just $1.50. So if you take that compounds like that, it gets very expensive like that. But also it's just this very non-accommodating culture. But I think that that's responsible for some of the brilliance here, because you have so many people here, so much of challenge because of that punitive economic, the punitive money gaming of it. But then you also have the natural brilliance of human beings and their inborn capacities, that you press people like that, and you really do have a seat of a lot of brilliance and cultural, sublime cultural contributions like you've had at Hollywood and things like that. So I think that some of what makes California great is actually the what can be mean about it. So now it makes sense why my aunt would have jilted me like that, because she did that. That I had to park my bike at a park the same time I got injured, where it could have otherwise been at her house like that. While I was injured like that, I was communicating with the park. The park did not communicate with the local precinct. The bike got impounded, even though I had permission for it to be there. And then the impound was like many 4 tens of dollars a day to be impounded somewhere. So that crushed me, and it would have been way different if I could have just parked there for a day. That's California for you right there. But so it's not unique to my aunt. It's actually the culture is that it's a non-accommodating culture. But then also you have people that have to enforce that. They get paid like that. So you have a lot of people that are paid to be mean like that. They're paid to tell people what to do and to force business as usual, which business as usual can be like bloody murder in California. It can be like that. But then, so I was thinking that a lot of the things that we do with money, so it costs in modern life, it costs money to be somewhere. All things cost money, but money is not, I've said on this channel a lot that money is like fiat. It's not actually real. So then what money actually is, I think it's actually segregation and gentrification in the same thing. Money itself is gentrification itself, is segregation itself, is disparity itself, is genocide itself, is money like that. And in California, they damn near worship money. And the whole United States does too. But a lot of the whole world is impacted by American culture, but California has been the engine of American culture going way back and dictates trends going way back. Profoundly so California does, but California is a lot about money. So too is America, a lot about money. So too then is the world, a lot about money, as it follows suit behind American culture, which is a money culture. But money itself, I'm saying, is redlining itself. And so also I think that some of the the places like in Chicago, where you have like gangster activity, a lot of gangster activity is it has to do with clothing, like going way back. And it doesn't always have to be only clothing, like say, or gang affiliated, but say people just have like well-to-do clothing, fancy clothing, stuff like that. People can have the same heinous, violent outcomes from fancy designer clothing as what would be affiliated, because I'm saying that clothing is actually it's